Chamath Sandu reporting for MMAJunkie.com and USA Today, standing alongside WWE Hall of Famer Jim Ross. And Jim, your one-man show plus guest just wrapped here at the Rock Bar Theater in San Jose. Is this going to become tradition for you now, for you to do a show WrestleMania weekend?
I hope so. We're already talking about next year making it bigger and better in Texas. You know, they say everything's bigger in Texas, right? And the nice thing about it is I live in Norman, Oklahoma, so going to Arlington, where WrestleMania will be held, is a drive for me. It's like a 3-hour drive, so it's easy. It's almost like in the neighborhood. So we're talking about that, obviously, but I'm doing more shows. I've got one coming up in Baltimore in May. We're going back to Toronto. We're looking at things St. Louis. I'd like to do a couple of these a month, if possible. They're just so much fun to interact with the fans, and I love the Q&As with them because I don't restrict what they can ask.
Right.
If they're kind enough to pay their hard-earned money to come see me, I feel obligated to be honest and let them ask what they want. And quite frankly, it makes every show different.
Right. Well, I know time is short, so let's get right into it. Brock Lesnar re-signs with the WWE. What was your initial reaction when you heard that news?
I was not shocked. I thought all along that the best option for Brock at his age with young children was to not chance the 4-ounce glove CTE issues that may occur with some MMA fighters in time. We don't know what the what the results may be there. We have found out what it is for the National Football League, unfortunately. So if you don't know and you know that the potential's there, I think it's best for him to stay in showbiz, so to speak, use his amazing gifts and his physique and his look, and do better. So I was not shocked, and I was very happy that he made that choice.
Do you think the UFC came out here on the losing side, or, I mean, was the WWE the bigger winner, or was the UFC the bigger loser in this scenario?
Well, I think I don't know if there really are any losers. Brock has great respect for UFC. He'll always be, when you see him, you're going to think of his success in UFC, going from an unknown with no experience to be winning the UFC heavyweight title. You're always going to think that of Brock Lesnar.
Right.
So I think for the UFC's concern, Brock Lesnar is a part of their culture, part of their story, their backstory, their past, their present, their future in that regard. So I don't know if there's any losers. I think that probably when he went on ESPN, that ESPN, I believe, my take is that they probably thought he was going to stay with MMA, and because there's no way that ESPN would put Brock on SportsCenter to do essentially what was an infomercial for WrestleMania 31. So I don't know if there's any losers. Certainly WWE and their fans are the big winners.
Okay. Well, let's stick on the theme of UFC, WWE crossover. Later on this year, CM Punk, former pro wrestler, will be making his UFC debut. Now, heading into WrestleMania last year in New Orleans, we had no idea that CM Punk would be making this decision.
Correct.
What's been the kind of feeling that you've been getting from the wrestling community and the fans regarding CM Punk? And do you think they're going to be going on this journey with him over to the UFC?
I think that the fans certainly had apprehensions of him leaving because of separation anxiety.
Right.
CM Punk is an amazing in-ring performer in the WWE world, in the sports entertainment entities. He was just terrific. He had great psychology. The fans loved him. He's very skilled. So I think they were upset that he was no longer going to be available. I think that the first pay-per-view with UFC that he's on will do terrific business because of the curiosity factor. The WWE fans are going to want to see how well CM Punk does, and I think, much like Brock Lesnar when he debuted, they're going to be cheering for him.
Right.
I think the MMA loyalists that used to be pro wrestling fans that are no longer, they're disconnected fans, are going to want to see CM Punk lose. In any event, most of them are going to have to buy that experience on pay-per-view, which means that everybody that's getting us some back-end money on the first pay-per-view that CM Punk is on is going to be very happy, I think, with the bottom line.
Right.
And if you're a fighter, knowing you got a short shelf life, it's always about the bottom line.
Do you think CM Punk will have the same impact that Brock Lesnar did in terms of, as you mentioned, the bottom line, the pay-per-view numbers? And do you think that the pay-per-view might even cross 1 million buys?
It's hard to say because Lesnar had such an auspicious run in WWE, coming out of university, coming out of being a Division I national champion amateur wrestler. Lesnar had that great resume. Punk was a pro wrestling guy pretty much the whole time.
Right.
So it's hard to compare the apples and the oranges in this situation. But Punk, given the opportunity to talk, given the opportunity for Fox or whomever to cover his journey, I think can tell an amazingly compelling story. So they're two different cats.
Right.
But I do think that most of the WWE universe and a lot of MMA fans are going to be very curious. I think that's a key word. The curiosity factor is going to sell a lot of pay-per-views. Whether it does 1 million or not depends on the rest of the card. But CM Punk's first venture into the octagon on pay-per-view is obviously, I think, going to be very successful.
Well, let's end on this. The biggest thing happening right now in the UFC is this Aldo McGregor Press World Tour. I mean, the embedded series on YouTube is breaking records. Reports coming out that the gate is 7 million at the MGM Grand Garden Arena, which is a new US record.
Amazing.
Have you been digesting everything that's been happening over the last couple of weeks?
First of all, Aldo is a very talented guy.
Sure.
But in all due respect to Aldo, he's a fighter and not an entertainer.
Right.
I don't know how good a salesman he is, but I do know he's a great fighter, which I have immense respect for. McGregor gets it. McGregor gets that he has to create an emotion in the fans. They got to decide whether they want to pay money to see him get his, excuse my language, his ass whipped, or they want to pay money to see him conquer Jose Aldo. Conor McGregor is a marketing genius. I think he must have been, he may not admit it. He may, that wrestling guy with that hat, I don't know what he's talking about. But if anybody tries to tell me that Conor McGregor has never watched professional wrestling or sports entertainment, whatever term you choose to use, you got to really convince me that has never happened, because he is really sharp on creating emotion. There's no Geneva. There's no neutrality with Conor McGregor. You either want to watch him get his ass whipped, or you're going to be cheering that he's the kind of guy I gravitate to. He's attitudinal. I live vicariously through him, and he's my guy. So Dana White, much like he did with Ronda Rousey, where Dana said, no, there'll be never any women in UFC as long as I'm around. But that little Rousey thing, she's my favorite.
Right.
And I love her as a performer and an athlete. But Conor McGregor, now he's discovered a gem. And Conor McGregor understands how to market himself and market the fight to create the emotion. You can't go in with neutrality. You've got to go in where I either want you to win or I'm dying for you to lose and someone to shut your mouth. And I think a lot of people, other than the Irish, are going to want Conor McGregor's mouth shut. Certainly they will in Brazil, and I think in the United States as well. He's living on that Irish flag.
Right.
Don't blame him.
Yeah.
So some Americans, old school, it's a nationalistic storyline. It's like the Hulk Hogan versus the Iron Sheik.
Right.
So no matter what your ethnicity is, if you're an American, I'm pulling for Hulk because the Iron Sheik is evil. And I think some people in America, rightly or wrongly, see Conor McGregor as evil and a threat. And so I think he's brilliant. I think he's brilliant and he's talented. So I would not be shocked to see UFC do amazing business with the Aldo fight and McGregor fight, because I think a lot of people outside Ireland and the Irish descent are going to want someone to shut McGregor up. And I say, good luck to that.
Well, let's end on this then. Put the numbers aside. Dana White has said that this is the most money they've ever spent, the UFC, on promoting a fight. It's going to be the biggest event of the year. When it's all said and done and that octagon cage door shuts, who are you picking? Jose Aldo or Conor McGregor?
You know, it's the thing about it is that Aldo is so talented. We forget because he's not loud and boisterous. He doesn't like to be. He's not braggadocious, but he's really, really talented. I think that if Aldo gets the chance, he's going to give McGregor the beating of his life. But with that said, and you asked me a direct question, I'll give you a direct answer.
Okay, appreciate that.
I think that McGregor wins a long, physical, bloody brawl for the championship, and McGregor wins. And if he doesn't, the return match or his matches to get back relevant will be even more money. So I like McGregor to win, but if not, all it means is that UFC is going to make even more money on the return match and the journey for McGregor to get back relevant.
Brilliant. Good old JR Jim Ross dropping knowledge on WWE and the UFC, picking Conor McGregor to defeat Jose Aldo come July 11th at UFC 189. My name is Chimak Sandhu, reporting for MMAJunkie.com and USA Today.